69 years ago, the NHS was launched with a bang. But as the years have gone by, the dream has started to tarnish. What started as a world leader in technology, care and outcomes is today facing almost permanent financial difficulties. The morning shift at A&E in Warwick. This is one of the country's best performing hospitals. Even so, the constant pressure and scrutiny is a drain for those who work here.
When we get slated in the papers and in the news and stuff, it's quite upsetting because I come into this career to help people. I didn't come into this career to be judged on our staffing levels and our targets and times. It's about caring for your patient at the end of the day.
So why is it that despite all their hard work and all the money contributed by taxpayers, Britain's health service seems to be in so much trouble? This is a high-tech training facility. It's where students come to learn how to treat patients, kind of a virtual hospital. In the real world, a lot of people are worried about the NHS and its economic crisis, as they call it. And to understand why, you have to consider a few figures, starting with this one. Over the course of the past year, £220 billion was spent in total on healthcare. That includes social care and care for those with long-term chronic conditions. But of that, by far and away, the biggest chunk was health, £141 billion in total. Now, big figures like that can sound a bit meaningless out of context, so let me put it into perspective so we don't get blinded by the numbers. Back in the early 80s, about 10% of everything the government spent went on health. By last year, that share of spending had more than doubled to 22%. Now, there's received wisdom that this is all down to demographics, the rising cost of ageing. But actually, when you dig into the numbers, it's a bit more complicated than that. Over the past few years, UK health spending grew at a rate of about 4% a year. But of that, only a tiny fraction was due to demographics. Far more important was rising incomes around the country, and even more so, other cost pressures like expensive treatments and the cost of chronic conditions. From all of that, you might have assumed that health spending was rising at a record rate, but actually, austerity is starting to bite. Look back recently, and you can see that the 5-yearly real growth rate of health spending has dropped to the lowest level since the 1950s. So healthcare costs are rising, spending is being tightened, and that's before you think about social care, particularly for the elderly. Now, that's paid for by local authorities, and it's been falling at a rate of 1% a year in real terms since 2009. In short, there are no easy answers here. But ask the experts, and they'll increasingly tell you the same thing. Britain needs to spend more on health.
It's clear that the NHS is struggling at the moment. It's failing on finances, there's overspending, it's failing on most of its headline performance measures. So in that sense, it is not sustainable on current levels of funding. So I think the choice for us, for the public, for government is we either pay through poorer performance or we pay through higher taxes for a better health service.
In other words, something's got to give. But with costs increasing and the government trying to cut the deficit, it's just a question of who blinks first. Ed Conway, Sky News.